I am Reed. I am 27, just an average dude. IV made tons of money mistakes in my 20s, and now I want to share everything I've learned to help you take control of your finances and your life. What is good, fam? Man, I've been really trying to get my head back in the game after all that relationship drama. And sometimes for me, that means diving deep into things that really make you think about money in the future. And lately, that has been silver. I know it is not the sexiest topic for everyone, but trust me, there is some seriously interesting stuff bubbling up right now that could impact all of our wallets, especially if you are trying to build some real wealth in your 20s like I am. We talking about a specific date? The 13th of July, that could be a huge game changer for silver, and honestly, most people out there have no clue. This is just some vague prediction either. We talking about policy decisions, government moves, and market dynamics that could create a perfect storm for silver. So buckle up because we going deep on this one. So I was talking to Harry, an old school bullion dealer, a real OG in the game, someone who has seen it all in the precious metals world. And he was telling me about some stuff happening that got me thinking, you know how everyone always looking for a good deal, especially when it comes to stacking physical metals. Well, Harry's got these Morgan and Peace dollars. These classic collectible coins selling at melt value. Melt value, guys, that is basically the intrinsic metal value for the longest time. These coins always carried a premium, even if they were beat up, scratched, or just AUFA, almost uncirculated, you always had to pay over spot price for them. But now, not so much. It is like the market has changed, and those premiums have shrunk or even disappeared on these kinds of items, which is pretty wild. And he even mentioned they reselling some constitutional or junk silver, $1 or $2 below melt, depending on the day. That is crazy. It's like a genuinely great opportunity to get silver at or near spot price, which is what every stacker dreams of. I mean, how often do you hear about that? He even directs people who come in asking for near spot prices to that constitutional silver, which used to have a premium too. It just goes to show how much things have shifted. Now, this shrinking premium, or even its disappearance, is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it is great for buyers like us right now. If you are looking to grab some physical silver on the cheap, it is a fun time to buy if this sort of thing interests you. But it also highlights something really important that Harry brought up. Something kind of sad, to be honest. So much of this stuff is getting melted down. Think about it. If dealers are getting flooded with inventory and they can move it fast enough over the counter as in terms of daily sales, just winnowing it down, where does it go to the refiners? It gets melted. It's like a hidden flow of silver just disappearing from circulation. I was watching a video from another guy I like to follow, just this morning actually, and he said just last week he sent in $7,000 face value of silver to be melted. That $7,000 bags, as they used to call them back in the day, 1,000 ounces each. That is a mind-blowing amount, 7,000 ounces getting turned into a liquid form, and that's just one small dealer in one shop in one state. Just imagine how much of this historic silver, this physical money, is just disappearing forever across the country, and once it is melted, it is gone. Man, you can get any more of it in that form because they only made this stuff until 1964. The US Mint made a limited quantity, and a lot of it has been melted over the years. So while it is not going to be an overnight phenomenon, if you young and you starting to stack and you looking towards the future just in terms of scarcity, this is going to become harder to get as time goes on because it is just disappearing from the market. It is kind of sad, really, because it was a point in our history when we actually used real money. We use silver for commerce, and it has kind of gone away, long gone in terms of commerce. But there was a lot of it minted over our history, so I don't envision a time anytime soon that you can get any, but I just feel like it is going to become a little harder to get as the years go by. And because of that, it could be that the premiums will then reappear and only go up as things get more scarce. And the fact that they don't make this stuff anymore and it has a finite supply means that long term, it is probably a good thing to hold on to. We could definitely see those premiums come back at some point on the junk or constitutional silver, just like we've seen in the past during times of high demand. But here is where it gets really interesting and where that the 13th of July date comes in. Harry and I were talking about this wild idea, something that could push silver prices much higher. It goes back to the 14th of January when President Trump put out a proclamation. There was a 180-day time frame for the Secretary of Commerce to bring his recommendations to the president. Recommendations for what? Either a critical mineral price floor or possible tariffs on critical minerals to boost domestic production. And guess what? Silver is explicitly listed as a critical mineral. So we're not just talking about some vague hypothetical policy here. This is actually on the table. So what do I think about this, man? It's entirely possible. I mean, we were talking about this before we started rolling the cameras this morning, and it makes so much sense from a national security perspective. If the president and his advisors decide that silver is a strategic metal fay, and it absolutely is, given its use in defense, electronics, and green tech fay, something they want dug out of the ground here in the US for security reasons, and not imported from some potential adversary or unreliable source in the future, then tariffs are going to go up or they LL. Just put ceilings on how much can be imported. And if you think about it, that would essentially force the United States and our businesses to start digging it out of our own ground again. But you can't just dig a new mine or reopen an old one overnight, right? That takes time, years even, for exploration, permitting, and development. So there would be an immediate, at least temporary, shortage of domestically produced silver if that tariff or import limit goes into effect in July. And then on top of that, the government starts buying silver like they used to, and as a strategic move to protect our military and technology, man, then you've got a huge competitor on the one hand. The United States government buying silver and also an artificial shortage created by these tariffs. You could find yourself in a really difficult situation at the local level where you just can't get enough of it for your inventory or for your stack. These are all hypotheticals, of course, but it is an incredibly interesting thing to watch on the 13th of July to see what this might do to the price of silver. It is not just some abstract economic theory. This could directly impact the availability and cost of physical silver for everyone. Yeah, I mean, Howard Lutnick is going to be putting his recommendations to Trump. And explicitly in the document, they do talk about price floors and tariffs, so we could see one or the other. And when I say price floor, it's basically an import price floor. So if you want to get silver imported, it has to be at least, say, $90 or $100 an ounce. So it is basically a tariff just called something else, right? Oh, absolutely. And I really want to emphasize, too, that the true purpose of such a tariff or regulation wouldn't necessarily be to punish other countries or to just drive up prices. It would truly be to protect our military and our government, and maybe even more importantly, the technology behind the military, our computers, and everything else that uses silver, by forcing the United States to go back and dig it out of the ground, because there is a lot of silver in the United States for whatever reason. And there's probably a different conversation there. We just got away from digging our own silver right now. Most of it comes as a byproduct of digging for gold and other metals. So by imposing a tariff, you are essentially saying you want silver at a better price. You better dig it out here, because if you are going to import it from China or Mexico or elsewhere, it is going to cost you X amount of dollars more per ounce. And that, my friends, creates artificial shortages in the market, making domestically sourced silver more competitive. But ultimately, in the long run, it would be a good thing for the US. We wouldn't be reliant on China or some other country to get silver. We'd be getting it out of the ground ourselves. And it would even create more jobs here as well. Absolutely. And if you think about other strategic materials like petroleum, I remember a time, and you guys are probably too young for this, but back in 1973 and again in 1977, we had gas lines in this country because OPEC was mad at us for various political reasons and cut our supply. We were importing up to 40% of our oil in those days. Now, we re-energy independent. In fact, we a net exporter of energy, oil, and natural gas, which makes us safer as a nation, more secure, and less vulnerable to global political whims. That same thinking, that same forward thinking of, hey, let us not get taken advantage of in the world market for silver, because technology has come a long way since the oil shortages I am talking about. Silver has become far more important than it ever was. On one hand, you don't see it much in photography anymore, obviously, but look at solar panels, look at computers, look at all the advanced weaponry and just battery technology that is on the way, all of it requiring significant amounts of silver. So I think it is very forward-thinking for us as a country to start digging our own silver out of the ground sooner rather than later to secure our own supply chains and strategic needs. And on top of that, there are talks of the US starting a silver stockpile once again. Back in the late 60s, they had stockpiled about 160 million ounces of silver. So think about it. If the government tries to do that same stockpile, that is going to pull a massive amount of silver off of the COMEX, the futures market, that is going to create a whole new layer of demand for silver, which is already naturally scarce and increasingly vital, right? So you, as a stacker, look at the government as a competitor, maybe a friendly competitor, maybe not, but it is a competitor where there is almost an insatiable demand for silver in a strategic sense. And for those of us who stack, it could definitely drive our price higher just by the mere fact that we have a huge competitor with seemingly limitless funds buying it up. This isn't just about market speculation. It is about national priorities potentially converging with our personal financial interests. Yeah, as of right now, I believe there is about $14.5 billion earmarked for stacking critical minerals. Now, obviously, not all of that would go into silver, but if just a quarter of those funds went into silver, it would be almost 50 million ounces that the government would be buying. That is 50 million ounces that don't find their way to coin shops or into your stack, man. That is a significant portion of the global supply being diverted for strategic reserves. So do I think it is possible we could see the price of silver skyrocket on that date when this actually happens? It is possible. I think this information is so limited out there. There are so few people that even know about what we were talking about. The 13th of July being this critical date that it may take a little while for people to wake up and see that, oh, there is going to be a shortage and I better do something. Well, that is one of the reasons, Harry, we re-putting this video out to kind of get the word out there. Yeah, I think I need to do some more reading on this for sure, and maybe your audience might want to look into this because it is just a date to watch, and it is an important decision by the government, and if the decision goes the way that we think it will, that yes, indeed, there'll be tariffs put on silver, then it is going to affect the price. Whether it skyrockets immediately or not, time will tell. But anytime you have a big competitor, i.e. the US government, entering the market like that and limiting imports, I think it could definitely be an upward pressure on pricing. This is not financial advice, just my thoughts and observations, but it is certainly something to keep an eye on if you are invested in or considering investing in. Physical silver as a convergence of geopolitics, economics, and basic supply and demand that could lead to some significant changes. We LL definitely keep an eye on it, and when it all goes down, we LL do another video on it. One Tiwi. I hope so. All right. Thank you so much, Harry. Peace.